Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back. Kellen here again with Droid Life, continuing our coverage of the Galaxy S6. Well, I guess you consider this HTC One M9 coverage as well. So we just got done comparing Galaxy S6 to the iPhone 6, but it's time to bring it back to Android. So we grabbed what is arguably the other Android flagship of the moment, and that's HTC's One M9. So just want to talk about each a little bit, discuss the design ideas here, build qualities, features, missing features, which we're sort of leaning towards as being the phone of the year so far. And the stories of each and things like that. So let's get into this. We'll start with the Galaxy S6. So just a little history. Obviously, 2014 wasn't a great year for Samsung. The Galaxy S5 was not a success, and they struggled. With the Galaxy S6 in 2015, they decided it was time to completely change it up, and they threw everything out that they had done previously, basically, and came back with what may be the most premium smartphone ever made. I'm not going to lie. They went with glass front and back, metal sort of seamless edges. It's one of the most premium built phones you'll ever hold. Like when you hold this thing, it just feels like a really, really nice phone. They upgraded it all the right ways. We've got a 16 megapixel camera with OIS, f1.9. It should be really impressive, and so far I'm really loving the results there. It has a heart rate sensor if you want that. It's got wireless charging with 2 standards, which is pretty impressive. It also has fast charging through its port, so you can charge basically up to 50% of your battery in about 30 minutes. They put a speaker on the bottom that's been upgraded and is louder and better than ever. Still have an IR blaster. They upgraded the panel on this bad boy to, it's still a 5.1 inch display, but it's Quad HD Super AMOLED. It's probably the most gorgeous display you'll ever look at on a smartphone. They upgraded the fingerprint sensor, so if you didn't catch that, you can now just set your finger on there and it unlocks instantly. So they've upgraded that, no more swiping. Put a 5 megapixel camera, wide angle lens up front so you can take better selfies. They're using their own processor, an Exynos octa-core 64-bit chip, in favor of Qualcomm Snapdragon 810, which is what's in the One M9. Samsung basically said it wasn't performing like we wanted it to be, so we went with our own guy instead. And so far, I haven't seen any hiccups. It seems to be performing really, really well. This phone also has Samsung's Pay coming this summer, which allows you to pay at basically any credit card terminal. It doesn't have to be NFC. So that's kind of a game changer. They really just went crazy with this phone. Now, they didn't include an SD card slot, which is too bad. There is one in the M9, so you're stuck with the amount of storage you buy up front, which is 32, 64, 128 gig. It's not waterproof, and you also can't remove the battery. So the battery is 2550 milliamp hour in this model. And remember, there's also the Galaxy S6 Edge, which has a slightly bigger 26 milliamp hour battery. Not a large battery, and people are going to be a little bit worried about the battery not lasting all day. We're still testing that, so I don't really have much to say there now. But it's probably going to get you through a day, just not much more. Overall, though, Samsung, they kind of went off with this phone. They upgraded everything. They changed everything. They listened to the critics that said the Galaxy S5 played it safe and was not a great phone, and they came back with this. And so pretty impressive so far what I've seen here. HTC, well, they kind of went the other route. So HTC had a decent 2014. I think they made a little bit of money for the first time in a couple of years. And so they had the One M8, and in 2015 they decided to they basically gave us the One M8 again and called it the One M9. So what we're looking at here is a phone that basically mimics the One M8, except there's a couple of minor changes. So they took the duo camera system or setup out. They moved the ultra pixel sensor to the front, so that's now in the front, and they slapped in a 20 megapixel, sort of more standard camera, if you will. No optical image stabilization. It's f2.2. So far, not impressed at all with this camera. It just hasn't really been great. It takes pretty bad low light pictures, not great good light pictures either. Some of the other changes, well, boom sound speakers are back. Those are still here. But they do have that Snapdragon 810, which is a controversial chipset. Before this phone launched, or before the final firmware was ready. There was rumors of it and reports of it overheating and getting so hot it might melt your face. HTC has apparently fixed that with a software update, and I haven't noticed it getting extremely hot. So they've dialed it back a little bit. A lot of people think they're basically just throttling down the 810 now to make it not overheat, which could lead to performance issues. We'll see there. It's got 3 gig of RAM, it has 32 gig of storage, and it does have an SD card slot. So unlike the Samsung, you can upgrade the storage in this, throw in a 128 gig SD card if you want. No removable battery, but it's around 2840 milliamp hours, so it's a little bit bigger than Samsung's. No wireless charging though. It does have Qualcomm's quick charging, so you can quick charge with a quick Qualcomm a quick charge 2.0 charger. So it's got that in there. It's got an IR blaster up top, just like Samsung. No heart rate sensor though. No fingerprint sensor. So again, it's just kind of like the One M8 all over again. Although they split up the volume rocker here on the side into 2 buttons, and then through the power button just below it. And it is one of the most confusing setups you will ever use. I'm not going to lie. I've been using the phone for 5 days, I think now, and deciding which button I'm hitting always takes almost a look. Like I feel like I have to look at the phone to figure out which button I want to hit. It's incredibly confusing. HTC also went ahead and tossed in this sort of sharp edge around the phone, which kind of makes it feel like and look like there's a case on the phone, which it used to be flush in the One M8, so I'm not sure why they decided it would be a good idea to put a bigger case on that's sharper. But that's what they've done. Headphone jack on the bottom of each, which we obviously appreciate. We talk about that often. And that's pretty much it. So in terms of devices and specs and all of that good stuff, they're both high-end phones built well by 2 respected manufacturers. HTC just kind of played it safe. How Samsung played it safe from the S4 to the S5. That's pretty much what HTC did here. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I sort of expect Samsung to just sell boatloads or 747 loads of Galaxy S6s. I don't really know what's going to happen with HTC. If I'm being honest, if these 2 phones were sitting on a shelf and I had to choose between them, I would choose the Galaxy S6 every time. I just don't see a benefit in the One M9 over it. Galaxy S6 so far seems to have a better camera, has a better display. It has a better in-feel hand. It's not quite as heavy. In my opinion, it looks better than the One M8. It's also available at more places, comes in more colors, potentially performs better. It's just overall so far seems like a better phone. Obviously, we have full reviews coming, and we'll talk more about that over the coming weeks. But I'm kind of leaning Galaxy S6 at this point. If you want to talk software really quickly, just know that they run completely different Android skins. They're both running Lollipop, which is good, but one runs TouchWiz, which is the Samsung. HTC is still using their Sense. This time we have Sense 7. So these 2 skins aren't going to really differentiate these 2 over one another. Android skins are what they are. I don't know that they add all that much value. I don't know that anyone's buying an HTC phone because of Sense. I don't think they're buying an HTC phone because of the Gallery app or because of Blink Feed. They're buying it because it looks good and it has a great camera if it did, and the specs are there. The same thing, they buy a Galaxy S6. They don't care about TouchWiz and TouchWiz's Gallery and their Flipboard integration and things like that. What they care about is if it looks good, if it's affordable, if the camera's great, the display's great. Those are the things that sort of help phones stand out. So I could do a comparison of Sense versus TouchWiz, but I feel like you guys probably know the differences here. Samsung obviously still going with the extra colorful skin. Sense really just kind of tones everything down, softer colors. Lots of grays, although you can customize a lot of these colors now, but it's not really a stock Android approach, although it is more stock Android than what Samsung's doing. They're just, they're Android skins. You either love them or you hate them. Thankfully, Android's one of those operating systems where you can kind of adjust everything and make it look like your own device. So we'll play with them both. One good thing is that TouchWiz has apparently been really slimmed down and it should perform better than ever. And Tim's favorite word, jank, should be moved out of it. HTC Sense has always performed really well. And so far with this phone, we haven't noticed any any slowdowns, any lag, any jitters. It just seems to perform really well. So the final thing is, again, these cameras, it's just the Galaxy S6's camera is so fast and seems so good so far. The One M8 just doesn't seem that great. I really like HTC's camera software, but the camera itself just doesn't seem to be performing well. It takes forever to focus on anything. Shutter speed's not great. It's not slow, but it takes forever to focus on anything. It just seems to struggle in a lot of the areas, especially in low light where you don't really want a phone to these days. So anyway, that's just been kind of a quick tour of each. Both nice high-end metal phones if you're into metal phones, but completely different in their approaches, which is a good thing. We like choice. So anyways, if you guys have comments, questions about each, want us to test anything in particular between the two, we can certainly do that. We've got both phones. We've got both reviews coming. It's going to be a busy couple of weeks. So be sure to let us know if there's anything you want us to do. So for now, though, quick comparison. Be sure to check out our iPhone comparison as well. We're Droid Life. Peace.